everybody. We're gonna get started. If you haven't signed in yet, it's okay. Don't worry about it. We'll be sending out the sign-in form after the meeting. But thank you all for joining us today. Today we have a very special guest speaker with us to talk about game UI. And he's sitting right over there. But before I hand it off to him, just a couple of quick announcements we would like to let you guys know. As usual, it's not too late to become a VIP member. It's 15 for a semester and 25 for the year. There's multiple benefits that comes with it, such as getting a free t-shirt with a yearly membership, discounts on other merch, and priority in events. And the deadline to sign up for a VIP membership is this Saturday, September 30th, so make sure you do so by then. And once that's over, we're gonna be ordering the shirts, and they'll be coming in maybe in a few weeks from there. And that's what the shirt looks like. It's got a little frog and mushroom. And yeah. And as for the merch, we have keychains and a sticker sheet available. The keychain is $8 for general members and $5 for VIP members, while the sticker sheet is $5 for general members and $3 for VIP members. So if you're interested, here's the QR code for the form to order one. We'll also be sending that out after the meeting as well, so don't worry about it. And just a reminder that this Friday, this week's workshop is going to be Intro to Git. It's this Friday, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. in Building 6, Room 204. It's like the building just straight across right there. And we're going to be teaching you the very basics of Git, GitHub, and version control, which is a really powerful tool for any sort of project or like programming project, such as like your game project, for example. And there's no experience needed. We're just going to be teaching you the very basics, so please attend if you can. And a reminder that next Friday is going to be our round 1 social, October 6th. It's from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock. I just realized we're missing that on the slides. The address is right there. It's about like 15 to 20 minutes from campus. And VIP members will be getting a free game card that they can use in the arcade. So please try to make it if you can. I know the RSVP form closed already, but yeah, you can honestly just show up and it's not like anyone will stop you. And yeah. And less than a month away, we're going to be having our Halloween game jam. It's going to be October 13th to October 15th, which is a weekend, where you try and make a game with some kind of given Halloween theme within 48 hours. So be excited for that and be ready for that. And with all that said, we're going to be handing it over to our guest speaker, Kyle Turchik.
Woo! Woo!
Did you want to do it? Or?
Do you have a picture?
We don't have one,
Okay, I'll
unfortunately.
just tell you when.
Okay.
Okay, hi everybody. Yeah, I'm Kyle Turchik. I'm a senior technical UI designer at High Moon Studios, which is part of Activision. I mainly work on Call of Duty. I was the I was the president of the TPP Game Dev Club from 2016 to 2017. That was the year the club really took off, and that's a long time ago now. But so nobody here was in college when I was here, but it's really cool to see the club have so many members still. This is actually a lot of people, so the club is really successful. I'm really proud of that. And I like RPGs mostly, strategy games, action adventure games. And after this talk, I've emailed the slides to Melvin, and so if you guys are interested in the slides, you can just talk to him, and you can just forward them to you. Or you can feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn. Just search me up, Kyle Turchik, and I'm happy to talk to you guys. All right, so let's talk about UI in games. So I was going to do a talk, or I would like to do a talk about just how to approach just developing your first game, and coming up with ideas. But I did a talk for that last year because I know you guys pitch meetings are coming up. So I thought, well, I'm a UI designer, I'll give a talk about UI, but I hope that this can still help you get some ideas how to approach different ways to design your game and to make it intuitive and just give you some ideas. So what is the difference between UI and UX? So you probably heard this a lot. Usually the roles are combined a lot of the times, but sometimes they're separate. If you look up jobs, you might see like UI, UX designer, or just UX designer, UI designer. Usually, they're a lot of the times doing the same things, but there are some differences. So UI is user interface. That's the colored part of the brain here because it's focusing on how the UI looks and how it's presenting that information to the player. So there's a lot of visual design. It's usually very artistic, trying to come up with how the UI is going to be laid out. We'll look at some examples later. Sometimes the UI designer might just be called a graphic designer. And you're dealing with fonts, colors, how the UI is going to be laid out, and trying to make it as like clear to the user to present the information and how they're going to interact with the information. But UX stands for user experience, and that's more so how the player is going to, like the whole way the player is going to go through the interact with all of the like menus in your game and how they're going to be presented with this information from knowing nothing about it. So you'll come up with like the entire wireframes or flows for the entire game, not just one menu and how it's laid out. You'll usually be talking about with like doing a lot of user research if you're just a UX designer. So you'll get feedback from other users and then adapt your wireframes based on the user feedback. You'll come up with different scenarios that the users might be presented with and try to come up with ways, new UI features that you might want to add that can allow people to interact with your game or whatever product you're making easier. And then that's where the UI designer will come in and figure out what's the best way to present that information. But the UX designer will come up with different scenarios that we want to cover to help users interact with the game. So we'll look at some examples. Yes, so next slide. Yeah, so here's an example of UI design. I think these ads are funny. So these are functional ads. They get the point across of what you're trying to ask for. So they have good UX, they get the point across, but they have very bad UI because they're ugly. So I think these are pretty cool. But this one's pretty good because it covers everything you might need as a graphic designer or a UI designer. Layouting, organizing ideas, design, illustration. Let's see some examples there. Okay, so next slide.
Just 1 second, actually.
Yeah.
Just a small difficulty on Discord, real quick. Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, yeah, so here's some examples. I'm going to cover some core principles of UI design later, but I thought before I start jumping into a bunch of like technical jargon and stuff, we should at least look at some interfaces. So this is one of my favorite games that I grew up with, Age of Empires. This is what it looked like when I was a kid. And you can see the UI is pretty functional. So and this is like RTS game. So you've got some resources to collect, and then you have units that can build buildings, do a mini map. Here's the unit you have selected. It shows the health bar and how much attack they have. So this is functional. But now this game has been remastered, thanks to Microsoft, which I'm very happy about. And now this is what the UI looks like now. So you can see it's still kind of laid out the same, but there's a lot of modern improvements here. So first off, actually, if you go back, so these are the old buildings that this unit can build, and there's an arrow here which goes to another set of menus for more buildings. And that's just an extra step that the user has to take to get to a specific building if they're trying to build it. So now in the new design, you have all these much smaller icons here. Everything fits in this menu. These are all the things that the unit can build. There's no more having to do an extra click to get to that menu. You can have multiple units selected at a time. In this case, they only have one selected. But if you have multiple units selected, they'll all appear here. No units are selected. This is gone completely. So you have a lot more view of the actual game, and all that backer that was behind the UI is gone. That doesn't really serve a purpose. So you can see we have a lot more. This looks a lot cleaner. We have these icons for the for the resources now are all in this separate bar, and then the whole top bar that didn't have anything on it is gone. Some icons that were over here have been moved up to here, and instead of just having words that used to say like scoreboard and stats and stuff, now they're all just icons. If you hover over them, they get tooltips, and so the UI is just overall a lot cleaner. And those are some of the kind of modern improvements that we have nowadays. Next one, this is Battlefield 2042. So this, a lot of players complained that there was no scoreboard when Battlefield 2042 came out. So this is the scoreboard design that they came up with. So you can see we have the list of players, some icons up here for different types of stats. Your squad members are shown in green here. And then you've got some other stuff like just stats for the current match, how much time is left. These are like achievements or something. And then this is functional, but I do like the design that some fans have come up with. So the next one is actually a fan redesign, and some reasons that I like this a little better. So as a UX designer, so I said the UI designer is going to be thinking about how everything looks, but the UX designer will be thinking about how we want things to be presented to the user and what is the user trying to get out of this menu. So one of the things that people will want to know from a scoreboard is what are their specific stats, so their kills, deaths, assists, and revives. So those are all up in this scoreboard, very clearly presented at the very top. So you don't have to search for your name in here, and it's that main piece of information that you might want to get is all up there at the top. You might also want to know the stats of your squad mates. So instead of the squad mates, which in the other menu, they are in the list and they're all shown in green, but here they're all grouped together here so you can compare really easily what your squad mate stats are. And some stuff has been removed from here, like challenges and stuff like that, but you don't really need that in a scoreboard. So I think that this looks a lot cleaner for that. But yeah, so the as a UX designer, you want to think what are the main things that our users want to get out of this menu. You can throw a whole bunch of stuff into a menu and a whole bunch of stats, but you want to think what are the majority of players going to be using this menu for. Okay, next one. Last example. So this is Legend of Grimrock. This is a indie game, which I really like, and it's like an RPG. It's actually tile based, so you have like 4 characters in your party. You're kind of moving on a grid. So you have, these are all your party members here. They each have 2 weapons. So they have like or 2 items. So they have a sword and a shield, or an axe and a torch. If you click on them, you have a very clear presentation of their inventory and all their stats. So you have their experience, their health, their energy, some stats about their defense. Here's their whole inventory, and then this is all of the items and armor that they have equipped. And then to attack, you use the same menu. To use this guy, you just click on the sword, and then this is really cool. Something I really like about this game. For the magic, you have these runes on the mages, and you have to actually draw symbols to do the different attacks, and you learn kind of what to draw to do the different attacks. So I think that that's really cool. But it's very clearly presented. You just have health and your mana, and your inventory and equipment, and it's very easy to manage. And it leaves all of this open space for you to enjoy the world, and it's not cluttering up the HUD with a bunch of random stats and UI. Okay, next. And then this is the map that they use in the game, which I think is also very clear. So again, this is like a grid-based combat. So you can see everything's kind of based on a grid. You've got some very clear icons here. There's a chest, and then here some X's or question marks. There's a crate in the water right here, and you just see clearly what you have found in the game. So if you couldn't open this chest, you'll know, okay, there's chest there. I'll go back and I'll get that later. It's just really easy to keep track. There's also it's a dungeon crawling game, so there's different levels. You can clearly just go up and down here on the different levels and see the different maps, so it's really easy to tell where you are. All right, so there's just some examples of different types of UI. You can see some different genres there. There's a FPS, RTS, and an RPG. So next one. So now I'm going to talk about some of the core principles of what you can think about when you're designing your UX or UI. So depending on who you ask, there will be a bunch of different answers to this, like what are the main principles. Here, this is one showing 10. I'm going to talk about 5 today. So we'll go to the next slide. So first off, usability. So usability is just how easy is your UI to navigate and use. So if it's simple and quick to navigate, players know where they are. It'll be you want it to be organized in a logical and intuitive way. So that means like headers for things you want above the content. You don't want it below the content sometimes and above the content other times. You want different, if you have menus, you want like your inventory to be under a specific tab, separate from your options and your equipment or something. You want, or your stats or your skill tree. All of those you'll want to be divided into different sections in your UI and different tabs. Don't mix and match things. You want a button bar maybe at the bottom of your menus to show exactly what inputs will give you certain actions. So you'll usually see, or you might have it contextually on the buttons themselves, so players don't have to look down here on the bottom. Clear and consistent labeling, so you know where you are. I'm sure some of you probably have played some games and you've gone a few menus deep. If all of your menus look the same and they're all just a list of buttons, you can forget where you are. So in that case, you can use different labeling or color coding to try and tell players where they are. Like in the options menu, you'll use specific fonts. You also want users to be able to accomplish tasks quickly and easily without having to learn different systems or complex systems. So that could mean you don't want to have a whole bunch of tutorial pop-ups when you first start your game. I heard a coworker of mine described or said this, which I think is really true. Said a UI is like a joke. If you have to explain it, it's not very good. So you don't want to have a bunch of tutorial pop-ups. Your UI should just be able to speak for itself. You can also have maybe shortcuts and favorites to allow players to jump to places that they commonly go to, so they don't have to keep navigating the same menus. And then also you can have them have some extra actions like right-clicking on a option in a menu. Maybe that gives you some additional actions that are usually hidden. But once you become familiar with the UI, you know how to interact with those things. So next slide. And then those are all the points that I just talked about. But we'll go. He has this slide, so if you want them, he can email them to you. Clarity is the second one. So this is a kind of memed version of the Elder Scrolls, or not, sorry, Elden Ring. Elden Ring UI, where they've added a whole bunch of stuff. I think the meme was that if Ubisoft made Elden Ring, which is kind of true. So you can see this is very cluttered. You know, the Elden Ring UI is very simple. You can see the world and kind of enjoy it, kind of like the Legend of Grimrock UI I was talking about. You don't want your UI to be so cluttered up that players don't know what they're looking at, or they just get overwhelmed, especially players that are new to games. If you are someone who mainly plays FPS games or sports games and you pick up an RPG for the first time, there's a lot of mechanics in there, and it can get overwhelming really quickly. So you want, if the usability is the making your UI simple and easy for players to navigate, clarity is making the information that we're trying to present to the player very easy to understand and easy to read at a glance. You want it to be easy to read and understand. You want it to be simple and uncluttered, like we were talking about. And you want to have a limited color palette with high contrast colors usually. So the reason for that is players associate colors with common features. So for example here, we know everybody who's played most games knows that red is health, blue is like mana, and green is like stamina or energy usually. So players make associations with colors for common features. You also know that red usually means bad or enemy, and blue means friendly or good. And you want to pick high contrast colors that work on different backgrounds. So you want to pick colors that work on either a night sky or a snowy background. You also, but besides the high contrast colorful colors, you'll want to establish a sort of brand for your the rest of your UI that's more neutral. So you'll choose like some certain grays or different colors that will be consistent throughout the rest of your UI on text. You don't want to make one menu look completely different from another one, because then players feel subconsciously like there's a reason for that. So there's a reason that this header has a different font or a different color. And then it might draw attention to something that you don't really want to draw attention to, and it just confuses the player. And then you also want to leave some room for white space, which we'll talk about again later, but you want to leave some room for white space to separate items out. So you know that if there is an XP splash that comes up next to a bar, it means that that's your experience bar. If there's a plus XP here, if there's a red bar over an enemy, you know that's a health bar. If all of your item UI is crushed together and cluttered, you won't be able to make those connections between things, and everything will just kind of blend together. Okay, next one. Oh yeah, and so this is what the Elden Ring UI really looks like, and it's very simple, very straightforward, and it's a lot cleaner. All right, next. Okay, flexibility. So this I can talk a lot about, because we have to deal with this a lot on Call of Duty, because we have a very wide player base. So to make your UI flexible, you want it to adapt to the needs of the user. So that means making it responsive and adjust to accommodate different screen sizes and resolutions. If you are releasing a game on multiple platforms, you might release it on PC, you might release it on console, you might also release it on phone, and you want your UI menus to be kind of have similar layouts and maintain that consistency and functionality, but still be able to adjust depending on the size of the screen or what device our players are playing on. So you can kind of see that demonstrated there. And you'll want to, but to make your UI flexible, that means supporting customization. So that means being able to turn off certain HUD elements, adding some shortcuts or favorites that players can use to customize specific things that they want to go to often. Maybe adding a search feature so that players can search through all different options and save some of the ones that they want to change often. It supports accessibility, which means like allowing people to change the colors so that you can support different colorblind types. Allowing people to change the button mapping so that it helps people with physical disabilities, and also it can just prove everybody wants to be able to customize their buttons, but it also helps a lot with people with physical disabilities, because not everybody can use the same buttons on a controller. And then also you can maybe allow people to change the font size to help people with different vision problems. You've seen options on your phone. People prefer larger text or smaller text. And then also to make your UI flexible, you want to support localization, so adapting to different languages. If you go to the next slide. So some gotchas when you're trying to make your UI adapts to as many languages as possible. Arabic is a common language, but it's read from right to left. So that you want to take that into consideration in your UI designs. If we have a layout like this, where maybe there's a header here, and then the text is split from right to left, it kind of looks weird because this header should be moving over there. So it doesn't quite look right to Arabic readers. Asian and Cyrillic alphabets have more detailed characters. They usually require a different font and larger font sizes, and so you want to be able to support that as well. Okay, next one. I think this is the two more. Consistency. So you'll want to have consistent layouts where all of your buttons and widgets kind of have a similar look and feel to them, so players know what they're going to do. For example, if players see this button, they know that this is going to expand into multiple options. They know this is a search bar. People are familiar with this. They know that this triangle is usually a back button. You can use these common UI elements throughout your UI, and you'll want, we were talking about your headers and tabs, you always want them to be in a similar place. If you hover over a button, you'll want a tooltip or a description to be in the same place, always related to the button that you're focusing. If you focus a button and the description is way off somewhere else, players aren't going to notice that updating. You'll also want to use buttons that are different sizes or the same size for their buttons of similar sizes if they're equally important. So you don't want one button to be bigger than another button if it doesn't really do anything special. Otherwise, it'll draw a bunch of more attention to it, and players will think that that button has some significance, and it doesn't really. So then it just distracts them from the rest of the UI. You'll want to use consistent typography, which we were talking about. Headers should always use like the same font, while your content underneath the headers will use a different font. And then you'll want to use consistent inputs that people are familiar with. So circle or escape is always back. X or left click is always select. L1 and R1 will switch tabs. Sometimes it's L2, R2. You don't want to be mix and matching those on some menus. And I know a lot of the stuff that I might have talked about seems obvious, but I've seen games where some menus have L1 and R1 to tab, and some menus have L2 and R2 to tab. Actually, Black Ops 4 had some menus which had on console had a free cursor where you would move the stick around to select a button, and then some menus just navigated normally. So I don't know why that was done, but some of the menus just had that free cursor interact, and some of them didn't, which just confuses people. And then you'll want your UI to also be consistent with some of the rules that have been established by other user interfaces. So that means like a mini-map on the left or an ammo on the right. That's consistent with Halo, COD, and Battlefield, and the three most popular FPSs. So that's, we don't know how we came to this conclusion, or even if it's the best to have the mini-map on the right and ammo or mini-map on the left and ammo on the right. That's what everybody is used to now, so that's what we do. You'll also usually have your party members on the left, usually in green. That's you'll find that in Apex Legends, Dragon Age, Baldur's Gate 3, Diablo, COD, Battlefield. All have your party members on the left. And then if you play RPGs, you'll also be, or just looter shooters, you'll be familiar with the rarity system, where it's usually white for uncommon, green, uncommon, blue, rare, purple, epic, and orange, legendary. You find that in Destiny, Apex Legends, Hearthstone, Diablo. We just use similar colors to other games because that's just what we know players are used to, and to change it is just going to confuse them and make them feel off. Next slide. Oh, sorry, next one. Okay, and then the last main principle I want to talk about is feedback. So this is the fun bit where you get to add some motion to your UI. So you want players to know that something is interactable, or that they've interacted with something. So if you hover over a button or mouse over a button, you'll want to have some animation that highlights that button. If you select that button, you'll want to have an animation that the button is selected. If the button is locked or disabled, you'll want to show a lock icon. If the player tries to click it, maybe shows like a shake animation is usually common with disabled buttons. And then if you can use motion to draw the player's attention. Here you can see all of this as that scroll up happens, it's drawing the player's attention downwards so that when that new panel comes up, they are their attention is drawn from up here, where most of the action was happening, down to here. You can use, you'll see sometimes when you unlock items in a game, these little icons on buttons showing new ability that you've earned, or taking you down a path to equip this new item in your inventory. They call those breadcrumbs, and the buttons will lead you down to where you can find the new item that you've gotten. Even just a notification on your phone when you have a new message, and you have a little number there, that would be considered a breadcrumb. And then we also have splashes and toasts, which are just things that splash up on the screen, or fly out from the side that tell you you've leveled up, or gotten some new experience points, or unlocked a new item, or completed an achievement. Those can all be both rewarding for the player because it's cool animation, and also draw the player's attention to where you want them to see. And then finally, you want to provide warnings when something goes wrong. So you want to allow, and also allow users a simple path to resolve that problem if you can. So if the player got logged out, or went offline, then you want to display a warning, but then give them an option right there to try and reconnect again. Or if a player tries to equip two incompatible items, you can display a warning and give them an option to swap the item with another. All right, next slide. Next slide. Okay, and then there's one bonus one, which is extensibility. This allows you to expand existing systems or add new features. You can support accessibility and localization, and it saves time during development. So here's a skill tree. I think this is from Assassin's Creed Origins. If you're designing a skill tree, you want to leave some room for, if you think there's any chance that you're going to be adding new skills, you'll want to leave some room to be able to add new skills, maybe in a DLC. So they've done that here. There is some room to expand on this menu. And then also they can go for an inventory. You don't want to have an inventory menu that has a limited number of slots. You want to figure out what happens, like if I might have 10 items now, but what happens if we keep adding new content to the game and we have 100 items? How are we going? And then you can maybe add some filters to that menu now, since you're not just scrolling through 10 items, you might be scrolling through 100, so you might be able to want to filter by different types. And then allowing, or leaving some space also allows you to support different localizations, different languages like I was talking about. So in some languages, for example, this description might be longer. This allows, this menu is extensible, so this could expand and allow more room for the text there. And just generally, the UI is always adapting with the gameplay during development. So if you spend a lot of time implementing a menu and making it look really good, it's likely that the gameplay might completely change. You might not even have a skill tree eventually. And that especially happens, that happens a lot with AAA games, because they have short time crunches, and it also happens with your game pitch games, because you have a short amount of time and you're just making a smaller game. So you might try to add something really grand, and then you realize that you have to pivot at some point. Or you start with something basic and you want to expand on what you have as you come up with more ideas and feel out the gameplay. But the UI is always evolving with the gameplay, and it's usually one of the last things that comes in. So that's why you want to make your UI extensible, so so that you don't have to redesign a whole menu when something changes. All right, so next slide. And then I won't cover UX design too in depth, but a lot of those principles that I just talked about are both UI and UX principles. But again, UX design will look more like this. It's designing the flow that players are going to take through your menus, and then and what actions the player wants to take, and then so they'll might come up with a basic layout like this, and then it'll be the UI designer's job to flesh that out and make it look pretty and clear for everybody. Next slide. So here's an example. I hope this video plays. So Hearthstone is a really good example of good UX, because it's not just how the menu looks, but you can play the video, but the whole experience of opening a pack. So let's see here. So that's the experience. It's the sound design, the animations, not just how the Okay, so here's an example of bad UX or bad UI but good UX. So everybody's used like maybe Craigslist or Reddit, and is familiar with those. They functionally work. I think people don't get lost when they're navigating them, but it does have bad UI. It doesn't look very pretty. Next. Here's a slide I put in just to rant because this, this bothers me. When they made this change to the icons, like this may be good UX because all of the colors are consistent, but I can't tell those icons apart when they're all on the same screen in my phone. So I don't understand why they couldn't keep the original icons. Right, so that's bad UI.
It's been years, I still can't get used to it.
Yeah. Next. So here's a good UI, bad UX. Since I talked about Battlefield, I'll talk about Call of Duty, so Call of Duty Mobile. So as a casual mobile game player, if you first downloaded this and saw all of this on your first login, I think this would be extremely overwhelming. There's a lot going on here. It all functionally works. There's you have access to everything that you need without having to go through too many button presses, but it just is so much information on here. It can really overwhelm new players really easily. Next slide. Here's one more. Oh, here we go. If anybody so these guys are hilarious. So these guys are from New Zealand, and they make really great sketches about like RPG games. So
finally, some combat.
Tip
Yes.
that comes up. They have UI.
Okay.
Their UI is pretty good looking, and they're fake.
Okay, you've been spotted. When you've been spotted.
So they have different, their color coding, their different stances, and all the different bars and stuff, but it just doesn't make sense to people intuitively. They got to put a bunch of tutorials in. Here's some different types of UI that you can take a look at to just give you some ideas of other ways you can implement it rather than just a bunch of buttons on your HUD. So there's 4 different types of UI. There's non-diegetic, which is just basically 2D on your HUD. Diegetic, which is in the world. Meta, which is somewhere in between the world and it's like in the story of the game, and it fits there, but it's still not actually in the world of the game. And then spatial is where it is it's not in the world of the game, but it's in it's in the world of the game, but it's not in the story of the game. So I'll give you some examples. So this is non-diegetic. You've seen these are most of the menus that we've covered. I just wanted to put the God of War menu in here from somewhere because it's cool. Spatial. So spatial is in the world of the game, but not in the story of the game. So there's a racing game over there. It's got those arrows. That is in the world of the game, but the player or the character who's driving that car is not actually seeing those arrows. Same thing here. In this case, we've got our backpack. You can see, so it's in the world of the game, but the character is not actually seeing it in the stuff. Next, meta. In meta UI, it fits in the narrative of the game, but it doesn't actually. But the character's still not actually seeing it. So there's an inventory here, and the character is interacting in Dead Space. He is interacting with this inventory menu, and we're seeing this menu. So it fits in the world of the game, but it's not actually like a part of the story or it's like part of the story of the game, but it's not actually really in the world of the game. And then same thing over here in Watch Dogs. The character's looking at his phone, so it kind of fits with the narrative of the game, but the UI that you're seeing on screen is still on screen. It's being presented to you, not the actual character. Next, and then diegetic. This is the fun one that everybody always tries to put it into their games. So Dead Space had the health pack on the back, all of these little glowy bits are your health, so it's not displayed anywhere on the HUD, it's just displayed on your character model as you're following around. Halo usually has the ammo displayed on the actual gun. In this case, the character and you are both seeing the same thing. And then that is Ghost of Tsushima, where the wind that's blowing is how it points you in the direction of your next mission or objective or where you're supposed to go. And so the character is actually seeing that along with you, so it makes you feel more like you're part of the world. But not all of your UI can be diegetic, even though it's very cool. They did try to do that in God of War. They wanted to have no UI in God of War originally because of the whole camera following the player and never cutting. They thought it'd be cool to have no UI, but to upgrade your weapons, you were going to have to actually physically place runes around. But then, as it got later on in development, they realized that just kind of slowed the gameplay down, and it wasn't really like that fun. So they ended up adding some more traditional UI, like we saw earlier. So next, all right. And then here's just some UI UX design tools. You can take a picture of that if you want, but there's a website there that I won't go into all of these right now, mostly because I don't have experience in all of these. I've experienced in Adobe XD and Figma, but these are the four most popular. But there's an article there that goes into detail about all of the different types. This is Figma. This is what I mainly use in our designs. This is a tool you could use to lay out without having your UX designs and flows without having to actually implement them in a game engine, so you don't have to actually implement them in Unity. And it's really great if you don't have any technical abilities, but you still want to work on the game. You can add your images in here and lay it out just like a website, and draw flow graphs and click on things, and you can see the whole flow of all your menus. And then a programmer can take a look at that and then implement that into the actual engine. Next. And then here's some UI UX references from different games if you want to take a look. So there's Game UI Database, which is really great. That's this image here. You can sort by, you basically see a whole bunch of different games, different genres. So that shows fantasy and what did it say? Retro fantasy. So you can see some different UIs there. If you wanted to create a retro fantasy game, here's some ideas that you can pull from. And then there's some other websites over there that also you can search for different UI assets. And yeah, so hopefully that gives you some ideas for your game pitches and an art aesthetic that you can follow. And that's, I think that's the last slide. Yeah, so thanks everybody. So that was a lot to get through, but I actually got through it all. One story I didn't get to tell was the power of the UI animation. For Google, there was this a poll that they gave to a bunch of people that were using Gmail. People were complaining about their Gmail taking a really long time to log in. So what Google did is they changed the rate at which the spinner spun. So they made it spin faster, but they didn't actually change how long it took to log in. And then they asked all those people who had originally complained how they felt about the loading now, and almost everybody said it's so much faster now. Because the spinner was just moving faster. Yeah, so that's how the animation can really help the feeling of your game. All right, so I don't have much, probably another class in here or something after this, but if anybody wants to talk, I'll be around for a little bit. And you can also hit me up on LinkedIn and ask me questions, and just good luck with your game pitches and the rest of your year, everybody. Thanks a lot.